Hi again then guys, and welcome to a very highly requested review actually for Gran Turismo Sport, but not too surprisingly, this is a car which goes beyond just being a Vision GT car and has real world implications as well, because the car in question, the Fittipaldi EF7, apparently in real life called the EF7 GTR, at least according to their official website, is a car which isn't just an in-game advert for the company's next design direction, which is what Mitsubishi and BMW and various other manufacturers have done, but at the same time it's not a completely unrealistic concept like a Chaparral 2X or a Tomahawk, something which has technology which we're really nowhere near. And not just in terms of development, but technology that's so far out and so extreme that it just wouldn't even be safe to drive it. This car goes down, in effect, a much more traditional route to approaching a supercar, because this is very much so a supercar. It's not a hypercar, it's not a mega car, it is a supercar, a traditional one. And in fact, in some ways, it's kind of a stereotypical supercar. It's the textbook definition of one. 600 horsepower, mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, Italian style. That's kind of the definition of a supercar, really. So with that being said, with those interesting choices made for the vehicle, not just in terms of visual design, but also the kind of specs that it would be given, why did they do that? Well, because Fittipaldi's concept of what he wanted to achieve with the car, given of course his background in racing, a very successful background in the Indy, among other things, is he wanted to have a car which would be like a race car for the road, but at the same time would be one which was much more forgiving than a traditional race car. And I like that as a concept. That is a cool concept to have in a world that has become just about pushing supercars faster and faster in terms of sheer lap time. It is refreshing to see that people like Horacio Pagani or Christian von Koenigsegg are still around. Those guys which aren't really interested first and foremost in breaking records, although, you know, they have cars that have, the Zonda R, the Koenigsegg 1-to-1, they have vehicles which are capable of that, but that wasn't their first goal. That came later. That's kind of refreshing to see that come up again here, because this is a much more old school supercar in that sense. This is a supercar which could have easily come out around, say, 2003 and done battle against your Gumper Apollos, your Ascari A10s, your Porsche Carrera GTs, your SLRs, your Enzos, your MC12s. It's that kind of supercar. One which is certainly fast, but which isn't trying to be, say, a 240 mile per hour machine or something which is going to lap the Nordschleifer in 2 seconds. It doesn't really have that as its primary goal. First and foremost, it's a driving machine, just like a Zonda. And I love that. So the question, of course, is, does it live up to that in the game? Because a philosophy of a car in real life doesn't necessarily translate that well always in a game. So does it? Well, actually, I would say it translates outstandingly well. This car is incredible through corners. Easily one of the best handling cars in the game, certainly one of the most pleasurable Vision GT cars to drive, and it's because it's got that traditional supercar package. It feels less about technology and more about mechanicals. And I love that. I am much more of a mechanically minded person than I am a digitally minded person. I will take gears and cogs over zeros and ones any day, because I just love that. There's something more inherently cool to me about a vehicle like that. And of course, this one has clever tech put behind it, obviously. It's going to make use of tech like that, but in order to keep the car as pure as possible. The tech is used as a means to an end rather than just a showcase of fancy, well, technology. And I like that. It has that old school flair. And on the game, although of the Group X Vision GT cars, which is what this is, it's certainly not the quickest. And it is unfortunate, I would say, that it is a Group X car, because this would be very, very effective in the Group 3 category. So it's kind of a shame, or even the N600 class, to be honest, it would be really good at that level, because this car does have just under 600 horsepower. It's got a 4.8 litre naturally aspirated V8, which is an interesting option. I would have personally liked a V12, maybe a small one, like a 4 litre V12, old school Ferrari-esque. But still, the 4 litre, or 4.8 litre I should say, V8 is a nice option, for sure. It's a German engine, And again, the whole concept of having Germany meets Italy in terms of tech and design, that's a very Pagani thing to do. And you guys know, I love Pagani. If you're even being able to compare the car to Pagani, that's a pretty great thing to say. Now, one of the most surprising things to me about the Fittipaldi is actually the weight, because it's very clearly racing inspired, and of course it's not a road car, so it doesn't have to be compliant necessarily with road going regulations or have the creature comforts that you'd want from most road going supercars. But I would have assumed, given the look of the car, the proportions of the car, and also the lack of, let's say, racing requirements associated with it, that this might weigh, given its all carbon fibre construction, somewhere in the region of 1100 to 1150 kilos. That would have been a great weight for this car to have. It doesn't weigh that much. It weighs 1,000. That's exactly 1 tonne in European money, and that means that the horsepower per tonne is around 600. That is an excellent level to be at, because that instantly means that although this car has less power than something like an SLR or a Carrera GT, it's got more horsepower per tonne than a Veyron. That is a very nice combination to have. And as I've mentioned a number of times on the channel, I love it when you get a vehicle which focuses so much on cornering ability that it doesn't need a huge amount of power. That's kind of the K-car principle. They don't have huge numbers, but they're just so quick through corners that they kind of cancel out any lack of straight line speed that they have on most circuits that you take them on. This feels like that, but in a supercar sense. It doesn't have Koenigsegg power, it doesn't have McLaren straight line speed, but what it does have is probably the best handling of any supercar type vehicle in the game. In fact, I'm going to straight up say it does have the best handling of any supercar in the game, because although technically you could say it's a race car or a concept car or a prototype or a number of other things, to be fair, if we're honest about it, that's what this is. It's a supercar. So comparing it to stuff like the LaFerrari or the Veneno or even something like a Vulcan or a 177, it's better than them all. Hands down, this can demolish those cars around corners, and that is partially thanks to the low weight, in a very similar way to something like a Noble, for instance. Nobles don't have insane amounts of power, but look at the M600, it's one of the most formidable track cars you can get. In a similar way, I would say this is one of the best Vision GTs that you can buy on Gran Turismo Sport. It costs 1 million credits, as you'd assume a VGT would, and it's 1 million credits well spent, or of course if you can win it, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this car. So overall, it's a brilliant new addition to the game, and one which, to be honest, I wasn't really looking forward to that much, so it was a very pleasant surprise. But that's it for this pick overall. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.